Well, welcome to SPED Homeschool Conversations, and we just want to welcome those of you who are watching us live on our Facebook page, and for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, or listening to us on our podcast as a recorded session. So for those of you that are watching us live, of course, you have the benefit of being able to interact with us during our conversation. And tonight I have a very special guest, once again. His name is Vinod Agrawal, and he is from A+ Interactive Math. And tonight we're going to talk about making math meaningful. And this is something that Vinod has definitely been, has a heart for. I just want to thank you, Vinod, for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I am so glad that you're here. You just have a passion for math, and I kind of want you to share a little bit about your story, because it's very different from people who pursue teaching mathematics, and I think it shows your heart, and I really want our audience to get to know that.
Absolutely. So math goes a long way for me. I absolutely loved math ever since I was in elementary school. When I got to the high school, I started actually tutoring math, and I continued tutoring math throughout my college years. I have worked with many, many students in college life. And once I graduated from college, I just absolutely loved math, and I continued tutoring, not necessarily because of money, but I just wanted to do something and then try to be able to help as many students as possible. With my limited time, I continued to do that. And as I was tutoring, even beyond my college years, I came in contact with a lot of the homeschool families, and that's kind of how I learned about what the homeschooling movement is all about, what kind of resources they have available. And soon I found out that there's really not a lot of resources for the homeschool family, particularly the computer-based program. So I kind of brainstormed some ideas with them, like, how do I reach out to maximum number of students who could potentially benefit from what I wanted to do. With one-on-one tutoring, I was able to reach out to only so many, and I only had so much time. So we kind of started brainstorming. We put a little simple video because of my background in engineering, with my wife's background in computer science. We put some sample videos together and showed it to some students, see how they like it, and they absolutely loved it. So that's kind of how it started. And once we developed a few sample videos and we got some feedback on it, and we kind of continued to develop more and more, I wanted to reach out to as many homeschooling families as possible, wanted to provide a resource that is relatively inexpensive. And not only that, but just the amount of instruction that this program includes. It's a lot of the techniques that I used in tutoring, we kind of incorporated. Every student learns a little bit differently. So I wanted to make it truly a multi-sensory program where they hear it, they see it, they do it. And that's kind of how we started this program, just because I just absolutely loved math, and I wanted to really see there's something we can do to reach out to as many students as possible, and here we are several years later.
That's awesome. You talked about how every student approaches it differently, and that and also the fact that how you teach it is how a student perceives it as well.
Absolutely.
And I think having an excited instructor about math can really make a difference in a child's life. And if they can see that here's the person teaching me, this is an exciting thing to them, maybe it could be exciting to me too. So I think that that's an important concept that parents sometimes overlook when they're looking at, well, I think I can teach this, but I struggle with math. Sometimes it's good to have somebody else come in and teach that subject who's really excited about it and can show the child just how personalized math can be.
Absolutely. Math is a pretty broad subject, as you know. That it's not just simple arithmetic. There's a lot of different things that you learn about in math. And there are lots of different ways to make it more meaningful, more relatable. One of the techniques that I used to use is try to take examples from daily life. How do you really put math in practical life? You can, for example, when you are in car, you can talk about the distance. Okay, you have to go so far. You're traveling at so far. If you maintain that an average speed, how long would it take you to get there? That's math right there. You're just simply traveling. You are having fun. You're not doing anything extensive, just a simple conversation, but you are using math there. In a kitchen math, I mean, you can talk about, okay, you want to make a soup. You want 2 spoonsful of that, 1 ounce of this, 10 ounce of that. It's all math. So I think there are lots of different ways to really put math in practical terms. And when you relate math to the real life examples, students really get it. This is why I need to learn math. And it's not that hard. I think with the right ideas, right examples, right techniques, you can make math really interesting for them. And that's what really sticks. For long-term retention, students have to be able to relate to that. And that's one of the core things that we always focused on. So for example, when you're teaching about fractions, most students find fractions very intimidating, but you can make it really simple for them. Just give them an example of pizza. Everybody knows what pizza is, what the pizza pie looks like. Most of the time it's pretty much round. When you cut pizza into 8 different slices, you take 1 piece out of it. You just took 1 out of 8. Well, that's math. That's 1/8. You take 2 out of 8. That's 2/8. It's essentially 1/4. So you can make even most difficult math concepts in simple term and relate to it. And that's kind of what I have tried to do throughout my tutoring career. And when I started putting these lessons together, I always had that focus in my mind. Okay, how do I make it more interesting? How do I make it relatable? So we are not just teaching them numbers, but we are making it more meaningful for them. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I even took word problems for one of my children who did not. He always was focused on superheroes. And so every time I saw a word problem, I just replaced whatever was in it with superheroes. There you go. Exactly. He's like, oh, yeah, I can do this real fast. You know, and it was all of a sudden the concept was like, yeah, if Batman needed 2 friends, you know, to build a fence. And so anyways, but yeah, you can switch it either way. You can put math into the real world and extract what you're doing every day, or you can take the math that you have and put their world into those things. But like you said, you know, it's so very important that those concepts have to be embedded through experiences. Absolutely. And I think that's through anything that we learn, but oftentimes we segment math. And I think that's what makes it more difficult, is because we say math is over here, you know, it's those symbols and those numbers. Right. And it has nothing to do with everyday life. And that's why our kids ask us, well, what am I going to use this for? Exactly. And one of the things that I have learned working with a lot of the homeschool moms is most homeschool moms, not all, they themselves have fear of math. And again, when I talk to them, I basically try to put things in simple terms. Like, you don't have to be a math expert to be able to make sure your students are learning math at the level they are supposed to. You don't have to know everything about it. There are plenty of resources available. There are textbooks, there are programs, there are videos. A lot of them are relatively inexpensive. A lot of them are practically free. You just have to do a little bit research and make sure that you get hold of those resources. You don't have to necessarily teach yourself. You can still be a great math teacher without having to teach necessarily. And that's one of the things that I have always talked to many homeschool moms. You know, don't be afraid. Math may not be your friend, but it doesn't have to be your enemy either. You can get along. You just have to find the right resource, and there are plenty of help available. And And a lot of people, sometimes it's a simple thing, but we don't think about it. And then once you say, yeah, this is what I can do, and then it just clicks, and then it does make a big difference, because how you perceive math, certainly your children are going to relate to that. So if you become fearful about math, most likely it's going to pass on to your children, and that's probably not a good thing for most of us, right? So, so again, you as a homeschool parent, you don't have to be expert in everything. I'm sure there are a lot of great things you do. The fact that you are homeschooling, that in itself is a huge deal, and it takes a lot of courage to do it. But at the same time, you don't have to be expert in everything. You just have to make sure that you're resourceful, and then you keep eye on those things. So definitely, I mean, it's a fun subject. I have always loved math, and I can talk about it to anyone all day.
So, I think you had touched on this a little earlier, and I want you to talk a little bit more about this, but math is not just equations. Oftentimes we forget that math has many different avenues. We talk about, arithmetic, but arithmetic is one small part of math. And I know somebody that I interviewed a while ago made the point that you don't have to be good at arithmetic to be good at math. And oftentimes we set our children up for failure if arithmetic is a struggle for them, and maybe they're good at problem solving. Right. And other parts of math.
Absolutely. So math is pretty broad. It starts with some basic numbers, obviously, but it turns into a pretty broad subject very quickly. For example, in the first grade, when I talk to a lot of the parents, what do you teach in your first grade? They say, well, pretty much addition, subtraction, and, number comparison. So I was like, that's not all. I mean, in math, even in first grade, there's a lot more to it than that. You should be thinking about fractions. Fractions, it gives, a lot of people are fearful just the word fraction, but it's really simple. I mean, you can really make it more meaningful and relatable even at a first grade level. Even a first grade knows what a pizza is. The example I was talking about earlier, you can just give them an example of pizza. For example, you cut them into 8 slices, that pizza into 8 slices. You take 1 slice out of 8. How much of fraction of pizza do you have? You can make it really simple, even most difficult concept that students might fear. In first grade, you learn about the geometry. Geometry is all around you. You can point to different shapes in your own household. Very easy. When you are in the kitchen with your children, making a breakfast or lunch or dinner, you can start, take the measuring cup out and, hey, Billy, give me 2 ounces of water, and here's the measuring cup. They will see right there. They learn about the measurements right there without putting a lot of effort into it. Algebra. Algebra is one of the words that I have found many people fear, even people in high school level. But we start talking about algebra, and I always done that. I have tutored even students from the first grade. I talk about the algebra right from the get-go. It's really simple. So the way I give them an example of algebra, you have 5 cookies, for example. You took 2 cookies away. How many cookies do you have? It's arithmetic, but you can put it in an equation form to convert into an algebraic equation. So I give them an example of some simple things like that. So you're absolutely right. Math is pretty broad. It's not just simple numbers. And you don't have to be expert in multiplication, division. You can still teach a lot of the other math concepts without having to be an expert in arithmetic. But the numbers are at the base of math. You got to be able to work with the numbers. So giving them enough practice where they start learning about the numbers, they know how to compare numbers, what those basic math operations are, how do you put them in practice, what's the relationship between addition and multiplication, for example. When you talk about the multiplication in relate to addition, it's basically you're adding multiple times. When you're saying 2 times 3, you're adding 2 plus 2 plus 2, essentially. So you kind of, as long as you kind of teach them some fundamentals, the basic principles behind that, they will become expert and they will start relating to it. And then, so again, you don't have to know all the tables of multiplication tables all the way through 10 or even beyond. But as long as they know the basic principles, how it works, they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's something that our U.S. culture way of teaching math is different than the rest of the world, because I've used different math curriculums for my own children, because I like how they introduce all the concepts at every grade level, from a very basic all the way up through high school. So it doesn't shock them when they get to algebra and go, what is this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes they might just have a space instead of an X, and it's like 5 plus whatever the space is 7.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
It's 2. It goes in there. Yeah. And so then they're not confused by it.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I introduce algebra to the first graders. Like the example you gave, 5 plus blank equal to 7. What can you add to 5 to make it a 7? And first graders or even a kindergarten will like, well, it's 2. Well, you just solved an algebraic equation. That is algebra at heart at a very basic level. And it kind of builds from there. But I think the important thing is to build that strong foundation as early as possible, making sure that children are being introduced to different math concept right from the get-go, right from the kindergarten level. Now, if your children have already well beyond that and they're still struggling, it's never too late to go back and catch up. One of the things that we do, and I'm not trying to get into the curriculum side too much, but being able to having an access to the material that you may have to go back. If your children are at certain grade level and you know that there are learning gaps, and if you continue to focus on those areas and help address those gaps first, it's going to go a long way instead of continuing to push them. Hey, you are in 5th grade, you will learn at 5th grade. It becomes very, very difficult for the children. The larger the gap are, more difficult it becomes, and children are going to basically start, unfortunately, hating math because they're struggling. And if you continue to push them that, hey, don't label them. What I suggest, and I have always talked to many, many homeschool moms, it doesn't really matter. Yes, you want your children to be in an age-appropriate grade, but if they're a little behind, that's not the end of the world. There's plenty of ways to get caught up, and it's more important to understand where the gaps are, finding ways to kind of address those gaps, however long it takes, and then just putting them in a grade level. My child is in, he's a 15-year-old. By age, he should be in 9th grade. Well, no, I mean, it's good that they are, but if there are gaps, if you push them, it's not going to get any better. So it's a good thing to take a pause, recognize where they're struggling, working with your children. If they're struggling with some basic foundational material, it's really, really important to go back and address that. And that's kind of what we try to do when we were putting the curriculum together. We wanted to package things so you can always go back and refer to it whenever you need it. That's what that family math package is all about. It's basically a bundle of grade levels, so you can always go back and review the stuff.
Right, and we'll introduce that at the end. So definitely stay tuned for that. But you're right. I took my son 3 grade levels back 1 year, and he breezed through, the things that he was good at, and then we just took longer amount of time for the things he was struggling with. But afterwards he felt so much more confident as he moved forward, and I totally agree with that.
One more point I wanted to make is because math is so broad, and for each grade level you're learning about different math concepts,
Mm-hmm.
what I have found is not all children are at the grade level for every single math concept. It's possible that
That
your
is
fifth grader,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's possible that your fifth grader may be right at the grade level for addition, subtraction. They may be, or they may be actually ahead in addition, subtraction. They may be right at the grade level, for example, multiplication, division. They may be a little bit behind for fractions, for algebraic concept. They may be struggling or maybe at the grade level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important to first recognize what they ought to be learning. If your student is supposed to be in the fifth grade, what are some of the things they ought to be learning? Where they have gaps?
Right.
And most likely you're going to find out that, student is in multiple different grade levels, depending on what math concepts you're talking about. They may be at the grade level, they may be even ahead of the grade, they may be behind. So to kind of understand, for this concept, this is what I need to do. For this concept, we're fine. It's really, really important. Again, I always tell the parents, don't box your child into a grade level, because more than likely you're going to find out, depending on what math concept you're working on, you may be all over the grade levels, a couple different, or maybe 3-4 different grade levels, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Exactly.
I think the most important thing is to kind of understand that because math is so broad and not every student learns every math concept the same way, some students struggle with certain math concepts, and it's likely that they might take a little bit extra time. There's nothing wrong with that. Let them be at their own pace. But again, the first thing is to recognize that, and instead of just boxing the student in a particular grade level. I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
I think so too. You had talked about how experience grounds an understanding of math concepts. And sometimes we have to build those experiences for our students in order to give them the basis to ground those things. So, what are some ideas that for parents, if they're looking at, trying to get their children to relate to different math concepts, say, maybe in the 4th or 5th grade, because I think some of the easier ones are easy to think of. But as we're getting into like multiplication, or statistics, even simple percentages and things like that. What are some ways that parents can help those children, maybe even using games or travel, those types of things that can help build awareness that those things are around them, and it's not just something that's on the paper that they don't have an experience with yet.
Right. So let's take an example of percentages, something you mentioned. Percentages is something you can relate to many, many different ways. Most of us get a lot of papers in the mail. Store A is running 20% off. Well, what does it really mean? What does it really mean? Do students really understand what 20% off really means? So give them an example. Pick up a paper and show them an ad. Hey, this item is on the original price is $50 and they're offering 20% sale. What does it really mean? How much would you take off when you said 20% off? Kind of put that in perspective, and they will be able to relate why should they care about percentages? So that's one example. If you're talking about some of the algebraic concept, for example, to find a really good example in real life, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But the way I was saying, if you start introducing those concepts early on and kind of put them in a simple equation, 5 plus blank equal to 7. Well, it's 2. You just solved a variable, essentially. You can kind of relate to algebra that way. Algebra is nothing but a bunch of equations. You can convert those equations into some simple arithmetic setup. That's how you introduce them, and that's kind of how you relate to them. So one of the things that I always like is come up with some, what's the word I'm looking for, rhymes that they will remember. For example, when you're talking about the order of operations, if you have multiple different operations that you're performing in a long equation, what is the proper order you should go in? And how do you remember what that proper order is? If you just simply remember in terms of, well, it's parentheses first, then the multiplication, it's going to be really hard. So we came up with, and actually somebody mentioned this to me. This is not my invention, obviously. PEMDAS. Please excuse my Aunt Sally. PEMDAS.
Okay.
So P stands for parentheses. Yeah. So when there are lots of different examples like that you can come up with to make it easier for the students to remember those things and be able to relate to it. So there are lots of different ways to do that. But I think the core is, as much as possible, if you can put the math in perspective of where you will use certain things, why is it important, I think that will go a long way in kind of instilling that love for math for the students. Math in itself, it could be a pretty boring and pretty hard subject if it's not taught properly. And if you don't put it in perspective. So that's kind of one of the things that I have always focused on. Don't just teach math. Teach them how to read it. Make it practical for them,
And I think the things that I use math now most for, and I have a degree in physics. I love math. I mean, I could sit down and solve math problems just for fun, but
exactly.
But I find that like sewing, crafts, construction projects around my house, I'm measuring, I'm getting some furniture upholstered. I need to measure. I need to figure out square footage, or square yards of fabric that I need. So, bringing your kids into those everyday projects that you do, you have an abundance of them around your home, and I'm sure you're doing them all the time. And oftentimes, though, we don't think of them as math.
Exactly.
We think of them as just the something I've got to get done. I'm looking for a table that's, this can fit in this space. So help your kids measure that space. What size of table would fit in this space?
Exactly.
I was taking my daughter to a furniture store, and she's like, "Oh, this table would fit." And I pulled my measuring tape out and said, "Measure it." She goes, "Oh, that's too big." But you don't think of, relational. When you're standing in a huge room, the table looks small. But when you get it home, it's not going to fit.
No, exactly.
That could be a problem, especially if it's a clearance item. So
absolutely.
So, it's problem solving and so many things. And I think, that has always been the thing that intrigued me the most about math, is trying to find the right answer, and sometimes there's not just one right answer either, and we get into algebra later on, you have multiple answers for the same equation. And so even teaching that concept is important. And I think, when I learned algebra, I didn't realize that it was related to lines, and so teaching my son those upper level things, and he was graphing always, using a program to graph out his equations. And I was like, oh, now I get that a lot better.
Exactly. Yeah. It's actually, math could be a lot of fun. Once you have all those fundamentals mastered, it becomes really fun. And I have worked with many children. They were really struggling, but after working with them for a little while, you can turn them around, and then they can become really, really good in math. And not everybody needs to be necessarily a mathematician, but there are certain things that you have to master even to be a successful. Doesn't really matter what kind of job you're planning to pursue, whatever the career. Math is going to be around you, and again, you don't have to be a master in everything, but there are certain fundamental things to kind of have a good understanding of how those things work and how do they apply in real life. It's really important. Yes, you got calculator to add and subtract and all that stuff, but that's fine to use that. There's nothing wrong with it. If you got the resources, why not? But how does it really happen behind the scene? How do you get, when you multiply 5 by 2, how do you get 10? Of course it's 10, but what's a fundamental behind that? So having learned all those things in early ages, and then applying that to real life, and you probably don't want to do a lot of the math in your head once you get past certain points anyways. You have access to the technology, certainly by all means use it, but make sure that you have that fundamental understanding. It's going to go a long way.
Right. I think that's a very good point, is that, if you let children use the technology too early, the concept gets lost, and all of a sudden it looks like just some magical number that appears. I mean, unfortunately, you can go to just about any fast food restaurant, and the cashier has no idea how the change is made, other than the cash register told them that that's what it was.
Exactly. Funny thing you bring up that example. I just came across that very recently. I was volunteering at the soccer game, and I was in a food stall over there. And nice gal, she was just working with me. She happened to be at a cash register, and somebody gave her a $20 bill, and the total bill was $18.50. And she just punched in $18.50 in the register. So it told her there's no change due. Well, because she, instead of putting $20, she put $18.50. And she just stared at me for a little bit like, what do I do now? I'm like, well, she gave you $20, take $18.50 out, or add 50 cents to $18.50, that will make 19. I told her slowly. Obviously, I didn't want to embarrass her. Yes. I didn't want to embarrass her, obviously. But you're right. I mean, she really struggled because she was just so used to putting the number, whatever the amount they gave, into the cash register, and cash register told her how much change to give back. She really struggled how to figure out of $20 how much to give back, $18.50. So again, if you introduce technology too soon without having that foundational understanding, yes, you will struggle. And what do you do when technology fails in this kind of thing? Now, of course, you could have avoided the transaction, and that's a lot more work. So having some simple understanding certainly helps. Absolutely. You're right. And unfortunately, a lot of us do struggle with very basic math concepts. And again, there's nothing wrong with it, but as much as possible, we don't want to pass a lot of those things on to our children. And there are things you can do, and I highly recommend that we do that before they are off to higher grade levels. So definitely, it's math is, I love math. You can probably hear that in my passion, obviously. That's why I kind of started this whole thing, and it's fun. It can really be a lot of fun, and then it's just, and I'm not sure how to describe it. It's an amazing feeling when you see somebody, who was struggling, and now they are not struggling as much. So that feeling that you get out of it, yes, I did make a difference. Maybe one student at a time. It's a different thing. For me, it's personal actually, and I just like it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I know every homeschool mom relates to that, because, when I first saw my oldest read, that was a huge thing. He was gifted in math, but the reading, goodness. Right. But yeah, so my second one, boy, yeah, math was his struggle, but, and you just take each day, but it's an amazing thing to see some things click in somebody's brain, and them to just realize how important and meaningful this really is to my life, and how it can be applied in so many ways.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's eye-opening being a teacher, and I think that's why so many people pursue this profession, is because they really do want to see who they're teaching succeed, and to use these concepts, and in any way that they're going to, whether they're going to balance their checkbook or they're going to go on to be an engineer. But math is all around us, and
absolutely, yeah,
it makes so much sense to do that. You know, even for children who are more artistic, you know, we forget that rhythm and beat of music, it is counted. You know, and also, you know, art. My daughter is an artist, and we did geometry last year, and she's like, asked me, well, what do I have to do this? And I said, do you know how many shapes you draw? And do you know how those lines relate to other lines? And so after we finished, you know, we did a lot of paper folding so that she would realize how when you fold, you know, the algebraic concept came to life versus just doing the theoretical part of it. And I think that's important, is that we often in the U.S. will teach math very theoretically, instead of applied, and to constantly find those applications as we're teaching. And if you have a curriculum that helps your children to find those applications, it's so much better than just teaching them the theoretical side of it.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, I mean, again, pretty much everything that I have done all my career or my life, initially just tutoring, and for the last few years, providing the curriculum, I wanted to make sure that we capture as much of a practical side as possible. Now, once you get at a much higher grade level, it becomes a little bit more difficult, but I think building that foundation right from the get-go is really, really important, and providing an access to those basic foundational material doesn't really matter what grade level you are in. Being able to go back and refer to that should you need that, I felt that it was really, really important, because I was doing that as a tutor. I would be tutoring a fifth grade student, and depending on what math concepts we are working on, I find out that, well, you really don't have the basic foundational material to be able to learn at the fifth grade level. We need to go back and review some of that stuff. So how best do you do that? Well, when you are particularly in homeschool environment, working with your students, I think one of the things you want to keep in mind is, okay, if your children does have, or if your student does have some gaps, how are you going to go back and, one, recognize that gap, and then two, what resources are you going to resort to be able to go back and kind of bring that in front of them, let them kind of learn those foundational material, and then continue to move on. So that's one of the things that I had in my mind, because I encountered that in my, as I was tutoring. So the program that we have put together kind of accounts for those situations and provides the package should you need to go back and refer to it.
Well, the important thing for parents to know too, and oftentimes I talk about, how curriculum is always written, so it builds on itself. And, even if you change a curriculum, it's not always taught in the same sequence. But also, if you're using the same curriculum, your child can completely space out a section and not have learned it, even though they gave you all the right answers. And you can still create a gap using the same curriculum. And it can be a good curriculum. It's just your child is not ready to learn that concept. And you do have to go back.
Right. And you're absolutely right. Different curriculums teach things at different grade level. And that's why I am not a huge proponent of putting yourself in a certain grade level. I think what's important to understand is, if your student is supposed to be in, let's say, fifth grade, what should they be learning at the fifth grade? And recognizing that is important. How difficult the material should be. Are they still learning 2 + 2 in fifth grade? Well, if they are, then there's a problem right there, right? So kind of recognizing at what level they should be learning certain math concepts, and then making sure that they're actually learning. I've come across, unfortunately, I won't mention specifically, but unfortunately, I have come across some curriculum material in homeschool, and a lot of the homeschool moms do use this. So I won't necessarily mention the name, but in my opinion, based on my many years of experience, it's very light. It's I personally don't think some of the curriculum out there are really teaching at the grade level. Again, I'm not trying to box children into the grade level, but the material can't be skipping certain things. When they say, well, this is a fourth grade curriculum, then I think it's fair to make sure that what they're supposed to be learning at fourth grade is actually included in the curriculum. You can't call a third grade curriculum and label it fifth grade. And unfortunately, there's some of that's out there. So I guess the reason I'm mentioning is because, in a homeschool environment, a lot of the time you're not aware of it. So it's probably worthwhile to look at several different things. There's plenty of research you can do without spending a lot of time on it, just to kind of get an idea of if your student is supposed to be in a certain grade level, what are they expected to know? Just having that understanding will go a long way in making sure that you come up with the right material for your student and they learn that material. Again, you don't have to be always at the grade level for every single math concept. There's nothing wrong if you have some learning gaps, but the fact that you recognize that there are some gaps and you're able to do something about it, that's more important than just boxing yourself into, hey, you are in fifth grade and this is what you're supposed to know. I think that's really important.
Yeah. I think so too. And, if parents want to look, at a specific curriculum, oftentimes, even if maybe you don't understand the math concepts, look at the table of contents, compare
exactly.
that with what the syllabus is for another class. And, you can kind of figure out, because
easily.
Math has general terms,
Exactly.
And so you can easily, even if you don't understand, what your student's doing, if they get into higher level math, you can at least understand these are the concepts that they're learning, and they're pretty typical. But I tend to just peruse through the whole book and say, is this right or not? So
right. Absolutely. Yeah. True.
Definitely. So, all right. Well, we're on our last 15 minutes, and if we have any viewers with us that have questions, I definitely would love you to put them up before we finish off. But I thought I would just let you add in anything you want on this. Otherwise, we can branch off into talking about the special program that you are offering homeschoolers and some of the incentives that your organization is offering.
Absolutely. I can certainly jump into it unless there are some questions that I can answer.
Okay. Well, haven't seen any yet, but definitely I'll throw them in if they come up in the next couple minutes.
Sure. So one of the, as we had talked about a little bit already, one of the mission that I personally have is I wanted to be able to provide a math curriculum that I can reach out to many homeschool families and help them. So what we have done is there are a couple of things that we do for the homeschool family. One, we talked about learning gaps a lot, and unfortunately, a lot of the students do have learning gap of some sort. To kind of recognize where they are and finding a way to help them close those gaps, I feel that's really important. So one of the programs that we kind of created is what we call an adaptive math curriculum, and that's exactly what it's designed to do, to help you find the learning gaps. And it basically creates a plan for your student based on where they test. And again, the intent of the program is to not box the student in a particular grade level, but the way it works is basically you put your student in a target grade level. So for example, your target for your student is fifth grade, and there are 15 different math concepts that your student should be learning. Of course, aside from the arithmetic concept, there are decimal numbers, percentages, fractions, some algebraic concept, geometry, measurements, etc., etc. So what we did was this particular program, Adaptive Math, it will test your student for each concept and figure out at what grade level your student is in. So for example, multiplication, they may be in the 4th grade. So how do we close that gap? Fractions, they may be a little bit farther behind. How do you close that gap? Certain things that are already ahead. You don't need to do anything. So the adaptive math curriculum basically starts with the pre-testing, essentially a placement test, but it's not a placement test in a traditional sense where you're testing everything all in one test.
Whole grade level, right.
Yeah. So because when you test the student in a grade level, then again, you're trying to box them in a grade level. And with 1 hour placement test for the entire grade level, you don't really get a full understanding of where those gaps might be. So we decided to do something differently. And this is really from the practical experience of many, many years. So the program does the testing at a particular math concept, and then it creates an individualized plan for the student if there are learning gaps. If there are no learning gaps, it's just going to tell you, great, congratulations, you're right where you're supposed to be. And of course, if you want to get ahead, let's say if your target grade level is 5th grade and your student has already mastered everything, you change the grade level to 6th grade because the package includes multiple grade levels. And it basically creates the plan for your student based on where they test. So you can continue to advance the students basically. So once they have mastered everything in 5th grade, you can change the target grade level to 6th grade, and now it will restart from the 6th grade. So again, the point I was trying to make earlier is to understand where those gaps are and doing something about it is really, really important. And that's exactly what that program does. So that's called basically an adaptive math curriculum program. It's really simple, but it's really, really powerful. And I think more people who have used that, we gotten a really, really good feedback as to what it can do for you. I mean, as a parent, you don't even need to know necessarily how to find those gaps. The program does it for you. And as a parent, you kind of see the report, where they are, and the program pretty much does it for you. So it's That's a great. Huge time saver for the parent. More than the time saver, it really is helpful for parents who are somewhat fearful of teaching math, particularly. So that's one of the options we have. The other thing we have, and something I talked about quite a bit, is when you're selecting a curriculum, it's always good to know that you can go back and refer to the material from previous grade levels should your student have any anxiety or something they may have learned but forgotten, and they might just need a refresher.
Anxiety is a huge thing that just turns that learning right off. I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of our students that struggle do have a lot of anxiety, and we think we taught the lesson, and it's nowhere to be found.
Right, exactly. So we put a package together called Family Math Package, and what it is basically you can have multiple students in the package, and it's a package of all different grade levels. Means we offer 8 different grade levels. So when you get a family math package, that's what it is. It includes all 8 different grade levels, every single lesson, every single interactive review, ton of practice problems. So let's say you don't want to do a pre-testing. And that's another thing. A lot of the students are really fearful about testing. So with this program, you don't have to do the pre-testing. You can just take your best guess that, your students should be in the 5th grade. You simply put them in the 5th grade, start working with the curriculum. And if you find gaps, you can always change the grade level to go back to a previous grade level and review the material. The other thing that I may have mentioned a little bit, but I wanted to emphasize is it's not just teaching the lesson. It's how do you know what you just taught them really stuck with them or did it? How do you know that? So one of the things that I used to always do in my tutoring life is I will teach them. And then in a nice way, without intimidating them, I'll say, okay, let's just review now. We just talked about this. Let's work through some example. Let's make sure you got it. And that immediate review with immediate feedback, if they do something wrong, I'll just tell them, well, this is what we learned and this is how you do it, but this is kind of thing you missed. So let's just go back and review that. So immediately after the lesson, being able to go back and review that is super, super critical. And that's exactly how we have designed our lesson too. So in this program, whether you go with the adaptive placement program or adaptive math curriculum or the family package, when you do a lesson, it's not just teaching you, it's not just lecturing you, so to speak, but immediately after the lesson, we have what we call an interactive review. That's where student will be asked to answer a few questions about what they just learned, just to make sure they got it. So let's say if a student answers any question incorrectly, the program automatically goes back and reteaches that portion of the lesson to which that question is about. So it's an immediate review with immediate feedback. And anytime they get something wrong, it just kind of reteaches automatically. So it's not just teaching them once and forgetting that, yep, they got it. It's really making sure that it does the interactive review. It gives them instant feedback. And then if needed, it goes back and does an automatic review to some degree, obviously, So some of those things that I have learned over the years working with the students from many walks of life, I make sure that those techniques, those concepts, that those experiences, we kind of build that into the program, and it does go a long way.
Yeah, because if the student thinks they have it, and then they start doing the problems and they do them all wrong, they've just remembered how to do them all wrong.
Exactly.
So having something that tests that right away and makes sure that they do have a full understanding of it is very important.
Right. And we make it part of the lesson. It's still learning. There is no penalty for getting it wrong. We know the students are going to get it wrong, but they're doing at their own pace without somebody looking over their shoulder. They can take as much time they need to take. They can go back and review as many times as they want to. But the important fact is the program kind of, I hate to use this word, but it kind of forces them to review it with them. And the reason we do that is because when you're teaching them, you also want to make sure that they're learning. So the program kind of forces them to answer a few questions. If they get it wrong, it says, sorry, you got it wrong. This is how you do it correctly. And it just automatically goes back. So when the students are doing these kind of things at their own pace in a non-threatening environment, so what if they get it wrong? There's no penalty for that. The whole purpose of this thing is to make sure that they are learning. It's not to penalize for getting something wrong at all. And then above and beyond the absolutely. So and above and beyond the basic learning, and once you get the concept, then of course you want to make sure that you practice with those concepts so you don't forget, because we all have a short-term memory. I am very forgetful about many things. So I might learn something new, and if I don't use it often, I'll forget about it, even though I practice it and immediately learning, and I practice with it, I knew I can do it. But if I don't keep up with it, I will forget it eventually. So the other thing is to give them practice. How do you apply what you just learned to math problems? So of course we have lots of practice problems, what we call them worksheets. Worksheets, you can complete them online. It grades and tracks it for you. So as a parent, you don't have to put a lot of effort into it. The program does it for you. And then keeping the material in front of them, particularly something they may have. Again, math is pretty broad, and you're learning different concepts at different time, and it's important that they haven't forgotten something they learned a couple of weeks ago. So we also have chapter tests, which basically reviews everything that was in that chapter, whether there are 10 lessons or 12 lessons. It kind of helps them remember some of that material, and if they see some gaps, you can always go back and review. So the way we structure that is to really make sure that learning is at the core. It's not just the instructions we are giving them. We want to make sure that students are actually grasping the material and being able to retain that. So again, anytime you need to go back to review, it's all there for you. So pretty much everything that I used to do with my students when I was tutoring, I
just built it all
basically, I put that into the program because my goal is one of my top mission is to being able to reach out to as many homeschool families as possible, regardless of how much you are able to afford. We want to make it super, super affordable for as many homeschooling families as possible. In many cases, we have actually donated a lot of the curriculum, particularly in special circumstances where they can't afford it. And that's fine. We do that. We still do that. But in order to be able to really
launching a new a thing coming up called We Care, and we have just a few minutes left, so I'd like you to talk about that, and also your website, just so people who are listening, because we don't have all viewers, I have it up on, it's aplustutorsoft.com, and you have to spell out that word, so A and then spell out plus, then tutor.
Yeah, I just got out.
His company is introducing a new program called We Care, and it helps families to be able to access the curriculum that he offers based on. Yeah. Oh, there you are again. Okay,
I'm back. Yeah.
Great. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, for some reason, I think the connection dropped or something happened. I couldn't hear you. So can you repeat the question, please?
Well, I just wanted you to take the last minute that we have together to talk about the We Care initiative that your organization.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, our top mission is to help as many homeschooling families.
Oh. And he disappeared altogether now. Oops. Let's see. I'm going to get him back on the broadcast here.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Yep. You disappeared for a second, but there you're back. So let's try that one more time.
Right. So one of the top mission that we have is I wanted to be able to reach out to as many homeschooling families as possible, regardless of what their budget situation may be. We definitely want to provide the curriculum that they can really benefit from for very small price. So what we did was, as you mentioned, we recently launched a new initiative called We Care, and we truly do care. So the way it works is basically we're still kind of developing the landing page for that, which will have more information on it. But essentially what it does is we have certain prices that we offer for the family math package. So for example, if you got 5 students, we have a family math package for, I believe it's $149. Not every homeschool family can necessarily be able to afford that. So essentially the program, the way it works is you fill out a form on that landing page, which we'll have soon. And basically it says, okay, I got 5 students and I can only afford to pay $50, for example. You submit that form, and depending on what kind of requests we are getting, this is a new initiative we have launched, we definitely will match you up with our curriculum. And it's basically the same curriculum that people who pay $149 for, you get the same curriculum for a heavily discounted prices, depending on how you describe your situation. And we're not looking for a lot of details. You don't have to spend a lot of time writing a huge essay or anything. Just some simple sentence.
No grand request.
Just a very simple request that when you fill out the form, just let us know what special situation you have and what you can afford and why. Like, for example, when you say I have 5 students and I can only afford $50, you may have a special situation where, you're on a single income, you may be on a single parent, and you are homeschooling 5 children. So, budget is tight. We totally understand that. And I'm very, very sensitive to those kind of situations. Absolutely. So again, the whole gist of the program is we want to be able to reach out to as many homeschooling families regardless of their budget situation. And in many cases, we do give out curriculum for free. But at the same time, as you all understand, you know,
You have a business too.
so we have people
You
we
have
care
needs.
for, and exactly. So we want to make sure that there are a lot of people who have put their hearts and soul behind this. There's a lot of operational overhead. So there's certain things that we have to make sure that we are able to collect and pay our employees and all that. So, but again, we give a very, very heavy discounts depending on your situation. You can get a $149 curriculum for even up to 70% off in many cases. I would say more common from some of the prior experience, even though we didn't have a dedicated We Care campaign, we have offered 40 to 50% off to just about even a very common situation. So certainly check us out. We will definitely put the once the landing page is ready, we'll definitely let you know what that page is, and you can certainly help your homeschool families kind of gain access to that. And we definitely want to help as much as we possibly can. I am absolutely passionate about education, particularly math, because that is my expertise. So I'm a little bit biased towards math. Unfortunately, I can't help with any other subjects, but
well, we just want to thank you for your time, Vinod. This has been so inspirational, and just your love of math.
Thank you.
Often people don't talk about that, and math is a very exciting subject, and we can make it exciting for our children if we introduce it the right way. And I just want to thank you for taking some time tonight to help us understand how math can be so much more meaningful for our students, and just for all that you do on a daily basis for families at homeschool. That's it's very inspirational.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that I could participate in this program, and then hopefully we can, with your help, we can help even more homeschooling families. As I said, particularly after college, I think I have worked with more children who are being homeschooled than just the regular students. So I certainly have learned a lot. I totally understand their struggle, and we have a great program out there. We have a couple different options, and if there's anything we can do to help as many homeschool families, I'm here to do that. And certainly it takes a lot to get it out there as well. So if you know other homeschool families, by all means, let them know, and then we'll find a way to help them, regardless of their monetary situation.
Well,
so we certainly want to help.
Yeah, and you can find the link to Vinod's A+ Interactive Math on the SPED Homeschool page. So that's at spedhomeschool.com. They are one of our curriculum partners. And so if you go to our curriculum partners page, you'll find a link to his website there also, as well as the links that we've shared during this program. So thank you again, Vinod. And thank you to our audience for watching. This broadcast was funded in part by the Learning Disabilities Foundation of America and by viewers like you. And we just want to thank you for your donations to SPED Homeschool. We are a nonprofit. Today we are celebrating our 1-year anniversary as an incorporated nonprofit. We're excited about that, and excited about for everything that this second year of our outreach will produce. And we thank you for being along on that journey. And also, this is SPED Homeschool Conversations, and we are continuing the conversation, of course, on Facebook and on our website every day. But next week, our special guest will be Rita Servaso, who is from Rooted in Language, and she is a speech and language pathologist as well as a reading writing specialist. And we're going to be talking about teaching strategies for deeper learning. So we'll see you again next week. Bye, everybody.